So I'm just going to go over a few things for asking a horse to move over to the mounting block using the cue that we teach pretty much all of our horses that we sell or that come through our training program. This is a relatively easy cue to teach. I just think it helps sometimes if a horse is struggling with doing it correctly one day. If you understand the mechanics of how it's taught, it makes it a little easier to take it a step back as needed. Initially, when I teach this cue, I am actually using a short whip. This is a dressage whip here. Anything longer, it's going to get a little trickier because you're already in close proximity to the horse. And typically when I go to start teaching this, we would typically mount on the left side. I'm actually going to go to the right side. I'm going to cue at the top of the hip. I'm going to tap her on the hip and ask her to move that hip over. As this cue gets trained out, where I started on the right side initially, tapping the top of her hip with our dressage whip, I will then move to the mounting side, to the left side, take my same whip, and I will tap across to the opposite side of the hip. And at that point, I may also lightly push the head away. You can see she already started for me there. And we may start with tapping, and then as the horse gets lighter to the cue, we can basically just kind of tap the air, right? See how lovely she did that there? So as the horse gets accustomed to that cue and starts to look forward to being able to do that movement, and I use a lot of food rewards as well as we work through this cue, basically they begin to expect that you're going to raise your arm and make this tapping motion with the whip. And so then what we do, we don't want to have to carry a crop around all the time, right, is we transfer the cue into something we can do with our arm, and we always have. So it's a raised arm, and I'm going to tap my finger as if I were making that tapping motion, right? So that's how we transfer the cue. And it's a little bit body language too, right? If I'm doing it from here, it's not going to make as much sense to her. But if I come up here, I may cluck as well, and see how lovely she gave me her hips there. So if at any point you're using this cue on a horse and maybe they're getting a little sticky on it, you could always come, if they're ignoring your hand cue, right, you can always come back to using that dressage whip or a crop, tap them on the top of the hip. She's very excitedly doing her trick. Tap them on the top of the hip and remind them that they still need to follow through with this cue. From there, the next thing, we teach it here on the ground without anything that I'm actually mounting from. That's how you first start the cue. And then we're going to transition it over to the mounting block initially. And from there, we can practice it on top of, rocks, boulders, the side of the trailer. I've mounted from the back of a truck, from the back of an ATV, stumps, all that good stuff, the things that would work out on the trail. And the horse starts to learn. As soon as you bring that hand up, you make your little motion, and you can cluck as well, that they're going to move that hip over. Pretty easy trick. Most of them tend to continue doing it pretty well. It's just sometimes the lazy ones will get a little sticky on it. Again, you can always go back to using your dressage whip. And beyond that, I think if you use food rewards each time, it makes them that much more excited to be able to come up and do that cue. You'll find a lot of them as well, as soon as you go to stand above them, especially from that mounting side, they may begin to auto line up before you even cue. So it's just a really lovely trick to have so that it's always easy to mount, no matter what you have to mount from. So for purposes of video, as I bring them up to different things to mount, I intentionally try to bring the horse a little wide, just so you can see them move over that much more. But a lot of times, if you're not doing that just for video, you'll find as soon as you go to stand on something or as you're lining them up, they're already making sure they're in place. They've learned that they don't need to be moving their hip away from you, that they need to be bringing it towards you and lining up well. So again, I'm just intentionally trying to make her move over more space just for the purpose of the video.